Welcome to The Jewish Lens, a podcast to discuss anything and everything from a Jewish perspective. Now, please help me welcome the man who controls the media, your host, Jonathan Rosen.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of The Jewish Lens. I'm Jonathan Rosen, and today I am thrilled to welcome a filmmaker who's been an actor, producer, and writer, including the new film Yard Sailing, which has been described as a Hitchcockian thriller and features Eric and Eliza Roberts. Please help me welcome Mike Tove. Mike, thanks so much for joining me today.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good. Well, before we get too much into it, I always like to start by going back with the people, so I want to start by going back with you. Where did you grow up, and what was your family life like, in particular with regard to Judaism?
Oh my goodness. Well, that's a different one. So yeah, I grew up in North Carolina. My folks were from New York. My mom was born and raised in Brooklyn. My dad was born in Baltimore and moved to Manhattan right after the Great Depression hit. And they were both in the sciences. So they came down. My dad hated New York City. But all the rest of my relatives are still up there, at least the ones that are still living. And, they're New Yorkers, born and bred and dyed in the wool. But my dad came down here, took a job at North Carolina State University, and that's how I grew up. And, my folks were cognizant of the fact that being in the South when we were growing up wasn't exactly the most conducive place to being Jewish, so we sort of kept it on the low down. And then and I'm the oldest of the three of the kids, and me and my sisters at one point said, we were pretty young, said, "Mom, why are we celebrating Christmas? We're Jewish." And so from that moment forward, it was Hanukkah. And, it is what it is, and it was what it was. And,
So there's really no Jewish presence in the neighborhood at all.
Well, there is, but it's, we have a synagogue in the area. We have a temple. I'm more on the Reform side. Most of my family is, although I have one cousin who is very Orthodox. But it is what it is. So the heritage is very important to me, and I maintain it. And interestingly, my wife is Catholic. My kids are Jewish Catholic. But we all, even my wife, we embrace all of the Jewish traditions a lot. And speaking of yard sailing, when we were on set, our second AD, who is perhaps my closest friend one of my closest friends from the film, is also Jewish, and so she and I would have conversations at times away from the ears of some of the others, and I will not use the Yiddish words, but we know what they are, and. But and we had conversations about our joint
backgrounds,
being a landsman. So.
Right. So, did you come from a house where there was like a big love of the arts and stuff, like movies? Was there big
well, yes and no. No, that's a very interesting point. No, my parents, and in fact, my parents were academics, and I started off life as an academic. I actually have a PhD in biology. Okay. But storytelling, even as a little kid, was always a passion of mine. And I just never did much about it until actually sort of between master's and doctorate in grad school, I kind of fell backwards into the idea of a story that I became fascinated with. And I'm one of these people that when I lock onto something, I run with it like crazy and drive it into the ground. But I just figured that this was a fabulous opportunity for a film. And I've always loved movies, when I was a kid, I was a big fan of of interesting. Everybody's suddenly calling my thing Hitchcockian, which is like, wow, okay. But I did like Hitchcock. I loved Rod Serling. I read the short stories of O. Henry and things like that, and I just love those types
Twists.
of tales without a predictable ending. And
What were your favorite ones? Did you have a particular favorite growing up or no?
no, everybody says, "Oh, what's your favorite?" And it's like I don't have one.
Uh-huh.
I don't. I have all kinds of favorites. I like stories that I don't know where the story is going until after I get there. If it's predictable, it's boring. And
Amen. Yes.
yeah, and it's just that simple. But so I was at home. I was in my parents' house, and just on the TV there was a call. It was a cattle call. Hey, you want to be in a movie? Come down to the mall and God, I sound like a car salesman. Come on down to the mall, and and so I went and I got in and
Which movie?
anybody, huh? It was the Handmaid's Tale.
So you got in on a cattle call? That's how you got into The Handmaid's Tale?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I was originally cast as just as a soldier, as an extra, but what happened? Two things happened. One, when I got on set, even before we started filming, from the very moment that I saw the set, and it was done up in period for the story and the film. And only people that are in the film industry will understand what I'm about to say. But I got infected with the virus. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay,
Yes.
I got infected, and it is an incurable disease.
Yeah.
It just is, Anybody that's in the film industry knows exactly what I'm talking about, and anybody who isn't is going, "Wait, what's he talking about?" But I got infected, and it just became a thing I had to do. And so after the very first day there, they had all of us. I was a soldier, so we were part of a repeat theme in the film. So we were needed more than one day. But I literally just started coming to the set or going to the production office and just out of the blue, unannounced, and just go and say, "Hey, I'm here. If you need me, great. And if not, it's okay." And most of the time they would go, "Yeah, hang around. We might be able to use you somewhere here and there." And so I was like, fine. And I'd just sit around, and I spent an awful lot of time at craft services table. Like, yeah, okay. And who doesn't? Right? And then I made the other thing that I did that turned out to be very smart was I made friends with all of the crew, especially the casting people. And so the casting director for the film became a very good friend, and I for the next couple of years I'd pick up the phone and I'd call and say, "Hey, is there a film I can do?" And she'd go, "Yeah,
That's
do you want to
fantastic.
do this or do you want to do that? I have a couple of choices. Which one do you want?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, I got to pick. Great." But it was extra work, and so
Right.
I started taking lessons, acting lessons, and ended up 3.5 years of acting training, professional acting training. And one thing
Let me go back to the Handmaid's Tale because it was Natasha Richardson, Robert Duvall, and Faye Dunaway. Did you get to interact with them at all?
not Duvall, not Dunaway, but Natasha Richardson, absolutely, and got to know Tasha, Aidan Quinn, those two principally. I got to know, and they were great. I mean, Natasha was just as lovely and easygoing and nice, just a gentle person all around. And Aiden was just he was just fun. I mean, he would me and my extra colleagues, like I said, we were soldiers, so we're all in these uniforms, and Aiden would come over and say, "Hey, fellas, can I join you?" And it's like, "Yeah, I mean, you're the star. We're not." But yeah, he was just like, "Hey," and when you're on set, not all sets, but when you're on a set and the way it's supposed to be, everybody becomes a family, and it was just really fun. But no, I never got to meet Duvall. I never got to meet Dunaway. What I have heard is that Duvall was a fun character, a bit of a cut up, and Dunaway was a bit of a more difficult.
I've read that often, but I wasn't. That's why I was curious. But so when you're there, so you said that first thing you started getting the bug. So did you start thinking like I can use this like about filmmaking that would help you later on?
Originally, yeah, sure, but I just wanted to be around films and be on sets, and so I did 5 feature films. Some of them through my connections, a couple of them I did get training. I ended up getting an agent. I got cast in a CBS in a TBS made for TV film, starring Gregory Peck and Lauren Bacall, and spent a weekend with them. And Gregory Peck was one of the absolute biggest sweethearts you'll ever meet. He was just so incredible and completely unassuming and just down to earth. He was just amazing. And
look at the first few things you mentioned that you were in: Duvall, Gregory Peck,
and Michelle Pfeiffer, and I've been around some pretty big names, and now because of yard sailing, we had Eric Roberts and Eliza Roberts, and Eric and Eliza.
I would definitely get there.
They're just good friends now. I mean, I 3 weeks ago I was out in L.A. and for a festival, and I called them up and I said, "Hey, let's get together for lunch." And they went, "Yeah, let's do it." And so Eric and Eliza and my daughter, who was part of the film, and we just went to Mel's, not near their house, and we had lunch, and we just had a just kick-ass time,
That's fantastic.
And there was nothing Hollywoody about it. It was just 4 friends just having lunch together and just talking about what we all love doing, but other than that, there was nothing special about it at all,
Mm-hmm.
And
I've heard great things about Eric as well.
and Eric and Eliza and some of the other folks from Yard Selling in Georgia, and Tom Logan, our director, who's just incredible. Everybody that was involved, we all share this fundamental philosophy that what we do in filmmaking is and needs to be fun. Because if it's drudgery, if it's not fun, the hours are hideously long, the work is challenging. And 99.9999% of the time, the pay is below horrible, and you work your butt off. You show up long before any reasonable person is awake, and you're working long after every reasonable person has gone home and sometimes gone to bed. And you do it 6 days a week, and then you have 1 day or 2 days break, and then whammo, here you go again, and then you're unemployed. And why do we love it so much? And nobody knows. It can't be explained with logic. But if it's not fun, if it's not enjoyable, don't do it.
I'll say the same thing with writing. I talk to all the other author friends. Why do we put ourselves through this? So it's the same type thing. Yes, all these creative fields.
But therein lies, that's the point right there, is that there is anybody who is, and I don't care if it's film or writing, because I like to write, I love to write. or painting or sculpting or doing anything. My sister, who is constantly just amazed at me and for my writing, she does quilting, and what she does is so extraordinary in terms of how good it is. And it's just, she keeps wanting to make it better. And I'm going, Debbie, for God's sakes, you have a style that is unique to you. Love it, embrace it, do it. It's spectacular. And and now she's got exhibits going around. I mean, it's crazy.
Right. I'm curious though, because you spent a few years there at the beginning. So, what are some of the weirder anecdotes from your early years in Hollywood?
Oh, well, okay. So, the really weird ones I can't say. Okay, for obvious reasons.
Can we say rhymes with?
Yeah, but
okay.
to keep it, in the family rating, I don't know. Okay, I'll tell you one, but it more reflects. I tell this story all the time, but to me, it more reflects what our philosophy on a set is. Well, no, I'll back up. I'll tell you one about Gregory Peck. So we were on the set, and two stories. Story number one is that Greg and I were just standing outside, just waiting. You know what film is like when it's hurry up and wait, right? Because everybody's doing everything. So we're standing there, and there was a police barricade on the other side of the street, and there were all of these spectators just packed in there. There were police officers keeping them at bay, and they were just packed in there, and they were gawking. And I leaned over to Greg and I said, "They're not looking at me, are they?" And he says, "No." And I said, "How do you get used to it?" And he goes, "It's just part of the job. It's just part of it." And then later, at the end, when we wrapped, I went up to him, I shook his hand, and I said, "I have to tell you what an honor it has been working with you." And he literally looked at me like I was nuts. And he said, "Well, come and have a glass of champagne with me, and we'll call it even." And that's a quote.
Wow, that's fantastic.
That's Gregory Peck.
That's incredible.
I mean, he was so not full of himself. He was so just unassuming, and yet, of course, he did what he did so brilliantly well.
So what made you decide to walk away? Because after a few years, you walked away from the business for a while.
Yeah, because I wasn't making any money, and I got married, and my wife says, "And you do what for a living?" And I'm going, "Yeah, I'll get back to you on that one."
So, all right. So here's
I never really walked away. I just put it on the back burner until other opportunities came up. But it was always there. And
well, that's what I want to ask you, because your return, from what I read, your return to filmmaking was encouraged by Tom Mount. A great guy, because I've interviewed Tom Mount as well.
Oh, did you?
Yes, I interviewed him, former president of Universal. Yeah. Great stories. He's told so many great stories. So how did that mentorship come about?
Well, okay, because I went into financial services, and a client of mine grew up with Tom and knew him very well. Mm-hmm. And I was pitching anybody I could my original stories, and Jake says, "Hey," he says, "look, I'm friends with Tom Mount, who was president of Universal Pictures." And I said, "Really?" He said, "Would you mind getting the story to him?" And Jake says, "Yeah, sure." So I gave Jake what I had, and 2 years goes by. I didn't hear anything. And then I'm on vacation. It was August of 2009. And I come back to the office, and the phone has been ringing off the hook. Then it's Tom Mount.
Wow.
And what happened was Tom, because Jake kept bugging Tom, "Did you read Mike's story? Did you read Mike's story?" and Tom was going, "Yeah, finally I did." And what I saw was an incredible story, but it's not a functional script, because I knew nothing about it. Mm-hmm. So he said, "Here's what I want to do." He says, I'll help you develop it, but I need for you to do something for me first. He says, just throw everything you've done away. I want you to just write down on a piece of paper. He says, I don't care if you scribble it or type it or whatever, a complete biography of your main character. What does he love? What does he hate? What does he believe in? What motivates him? Just all of those little details that anybody that writes understands intuitively now. And by the way, acting, same thing. And he says, take a couple of weeks and get it to me. And I went, okay. And so I did that for every single character in the story.
Mm-hmm.
And I got it to him the next day. And that blew his mind. Because nobody does that in a day.
Right.
So the next thing I know, he's back here. He's from Durham, North Carolina. That's where he was born and raised. And so we meet for the first time, and he sets me up with an option contract, and we tried to get the film made. Now, it was way premature, but the short answer is that Tom and I just became really good friends, and one thing led to the next, 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 and all of a sudden, first of all, I'm taking screenwriting lessons from all kinds of sources, not the least of which was Jacob Kruger Studios in New York. You may be familiar with Jake. And phenomenal stuff. And it was, most of my training was one-on-one with his top instructors. And, it wasn't cheap, but it was worth it. And I really learned the craft. And the second thing is that, again, through multiple bizarre connections, everything is connected through thin threads. I got to meet and become friends with Tom Logan. And Tom Logan is a director. He's been directing for over 40 years. He's been in the industry for well over 50. Pretty serious accolades of his own right. And we were working on a couple of film scripts that I had put together. And about 2 years ago, not quite 2 years ago, let me think about this. Yeah, not quite 2 years ago. We were on the phone, and I just threw out, I said, hey, are you at all interested in doing a short? And because the story for Yard Sailing was a story that I had concocted around 1991. And had the opportunity to meet and pitch it. Well, I had dinner with Sherry Rhodes. And in case you're not aware, Sherry was the casting director for Steven Spielberg for Jaws and Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And then other little nobody knows movies like Silverado and Terms of Endearment and Urban Cowboy and so forth. I mean, she was
I'll look them up later.
Major force in filmmaking. And Sherry was just this pint-sized dynamo of energy. She was great. And I told her the story, and she was, oh, you must make this film. This film has to be made. And so, that bit of encouragement stuck with me. And so when Tom and I started talking about it, I said, you interested in a short? And he said, well, yeah, send me the script and we'll see. And so I sent him the script, and the next thing I know, bam, we're into pre-production. I mean, it was that quick because he loved the story and he loved the script. And we tweaked it and we did a lot of work. It was almost 2 years. It was almost 2 years of work.
So tell me about Yard Sailing, the premise, and like, what is the story behind that made you want to do this film?
Well, all right. So I want to be careful because I don't want to spoil
it too much. Right.
At the beginning, all my stories, every story I like, takes you in unexpected directions. But fundamentally, it is a story about a suburban couple, Jim and Sally Marsh. And Jim has a job that has taken a potential negative turn, and there's it's an all or none opportunity. The opportunity is come up with a an ad campaign that that his employer likes, or it's not directly stated, but the implication is, or you can find another job. So Jim is burning the midnight oil, trying to come up with this winning proposal. Sally, in the meantime, Sally is the opposite of Jim. Jim is very pragmatic. He's very matter of fact, and Sally is a bubbly, effervescent bundle of energy who lives life on the belief that miraculous things are just around the corner. And she wants to go to a yard sale. She wants to go to a yard sale because somewhere, but it was all over the news, but she can't remember where, that somebody somewhere, but she can't remember exactly where, bought a painting from at a yard sale for $5. And somehow this painting turned out to be a masterpiece, an original by Picasso or somebody, but she can't remember, right? You get the picture? And sold it for $1 million. So in Sally's mind, $5 to $1 million. And she wants Jim to take her yard sale. And she wants to go this weekend. And the reason she wants to go to this weekend, this Saturday, is because it rained the last 3 weekends in a row. And this Saturday is going to be sunny. Okay? And do you know what that means? She asks Jim. And Jim goes, it'll be dry. But what she really means is that everything will be available and there will be hidden treasure to be found. Now, I want you to think about it. How many people every weekend, well, not every day, but every weekend go to a yard sale and they're rummaging around because in the back of their mind, they're going to find some treasure that somebody else is discarding and didn't recognize, and, $5 to $1 million type thing, right? It's a common fantasy dream. So Sally wants to go to the yard sale and she bullies Jim. She reminds him that he promised, and a promise is a promise, and you promised. And so Jim relents, and he takes her to a yard sale. And lo and behold, she finds an object that is, it's pretty. It's a fancy locked box. There's definitely something inside of it, and there is no key to the lock. So, oh my gosh, there is treasure inside, right? And so how much does this box cost? $5. So Sally becomes convinced that this $5 box contains treasure. And so there is a bit of an episode of them getting the box opened, and then what she finds inside takes us through the rest of the film. And fundamentally, the tagline of the film, which is on the poster, is that Sally dreamed of finding hidden treasure. But what she found was more than she bargained for, because things don't go according to plan from the moment she opens the box. And it keeps getting harder and harder.
It sounds like something that I would absolutely love, and I love these type of films. So, curiosity, you said you don't have a favorite movie growing up. Do you have a favorite Hitchcock film or no?
No. Because they all scared the crap out of me. But, I don't know. I mean, name one. And there's so many of the Hitchcock films that...
I do have a favorite Hitchcock. Do I have a favorite Hitchcock?
Psycho, Birds, North by Northwest. I mean, all the famous ones, but also the Alfred Hitchcock show,
yes.
When he was on... I won't try to imitate the music, but, his face came into the solo. I'm just a fan of, I'm a fan of greatness, I guess is the best way I can put it. Since this is a Jewish thing, I will tell you an unrelated but related story. And I don't know how many people will recognize this, but all right, too bad. When I was growing up, my mom was a a senior patron of a concert program at North Carolina State University called Friends of the College. And they would bring in some pretty substantial performers, musicians predominantly. And because she was one of the leading ticket sellers, we would get comp tickets, front row, with backstage passes. So the performer was a pianist and Jewish. And so after the concert, I went running, and I don't know, 12 years old at the time. I went running backstage to meet him. And by the time I got back there, he was out of his shoes. He was in his socks. He had taken his jacket off and his tie off, right? And he's a short little guy. And he's just running around in his pants and his shirt and his socks. And I went up to him and, got an autograph and all that. And I have these very long fingers. I don't know if you can see. So he looks at my hands and he says, "Oh, you must play the piano." And I said, "Well, I'm taking lessons." And he gave me this bear hug, this just monstrous, deep, warm hug, right? It was Artur Rubinstein.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, so I got a pop up on my screen I'm going to try to get rid of because it's driving me crazy here. Just stand by. Okay, good. So yeah, I mean, what can I say?
How did you get the cast together? How did you get like Eric Roberts to come along, Eliza Roberts? How did you get that cast?
Tom Logan did the casting. So when we went through, we spent 6 weeks tweaking the script, and then we spent a month developing our crew. And Tom already had a crew and a location associated with it in mind, so it took us a month to get that. And then we put casting calls up on Breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
And Eliza, Eliza and Eric have been friends with Tom for a long, long time. They've never worked professionally, but they've been friends. So Eliza sent in an audition tape, and we were going, "Holy cow!" So we cast Eliza, and then then we had an opportunity to cast Eric, and we asked, and we said, "Would Eric be interested in doing this?" And he said, "Yeah." And we went, "Really? Wow. Okay, great. Absolutely. Come on board." But, it was, we were at first thinking there's just no way that a star that big is going to want to sign on a little project like this. But they were fabulous, and they really helped make the film. But honestly, every cast member we had, without exception, was just perfectly cast, and that was Tom Logan. I mean, and to put it in perspective, from when the casting call went up on Breakdown Services, in the first 12 hours of it being live, we had 9,000 submissions. We cut it off. We went from October through it was supposed to go through August through October, end of August through October. But we cut it off mid-October because we'd cast everybody and we didn't need to see anybody else. By that time, we had, we don't know, 20 to 30,000 auditions. And Tom looked at every stinking one of them. And in many cases, half a dozen or more times. I mean, Tom was doing this full time. Every waking minute of the day, he was looking at these audition tapes. And he would call me from time to time and say, "Oh, you ought to see this thing," because a lot of them were really bad. And, but, I mean, also we had the good ones. And so I got to see those. And I saw Eliza's audition. I saw George's audition. I saw Liam's audition. And when you see the good ones,
yeah, it's that much of a difference.
They leap off the page at you, as this is with Georgia, who was our lead. Georgia played Sally Marsh. Tom called me and he said, "I just got Georgia's tape." He already knew he was going to cast her. But he says, I just got Georgia's tape. I want you to look at it. And then he says, call me and let me know. Because these are my characters, right? And Sally is hands down the lead.
Mhm.
So I start the tape, and halfway through Georgia's slate, just her slating, I was like, oh my God. So I called
This
Tom
is it.
back and I said, whoa. And he said, you didn't have time to watch the whole thing. I said, I didn't need to. And he goes, you just watch the whole thing anyway.
Hmm.
She was just that good. And Liam, same thing. And and Eliza. Now with Eliza, the part was originally it was a supporting role, and I didn't need. I didn't think I needed the level of nuanced um, performance that we got out of the lead actors. But boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So there was one little piece of it where Eliza did an improv. Now she told me, because I told her, this is like just 3 weeks ago. I told her, I said, that little bit that you did, and she knew exactly what I was talking about. I said, that was my favorite part of what you did. And she says, oh, I'm so glad you said that, because, I really felt that it was important. And I talked to Tom and he felt it was right. And we put it in. And I was really hoping you'd like it. And I go, no, I loved it. It was just so perfect.
Hmm.
And so, but Eric, and it's not, it wasn't the words that they delivered. The real talent in all of this was never in the dialogue, even though it was good dialogue, if I may say. It was in the spaces between the dialogue.
So where can people see this?
Well, you have to go to my website. So, emeraldoakproductions.com. And you click on yard sailing, and then you click on see film, and it'll play.
Fantastic. Fantastic. What are you working on next?
A couple of extra. Well, I've got 2 shorts. We're in early stages, so sorry I can't say anything about them. Okay. I will say one is a CG animated short, and the other is live action. And then we're working on a theatrical feature. The shorts, I don't need to get outside funding for.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the funding for those, but for the feature, I need a much bigger chunk of money. Mm-hmm. So we have investors and we're talking with them. It's grindingly slow. But
as the whole industry is with that. Yes. When you want to get something done, yes. It's slow.
Well, I will say this. On the feature, we did submit it to a professional profitability service, okay? Mm. And they came back and said that opening run, we project, and this is with an 85% probability of accuracy, we project a 6.5 to 1 return. So for every dollar spent, $6.5 back, which are phenomenal numbers. I mean, we're talking about they were projecting close to $100 million of gross revenue on the opening run. Nuts. So I'm hoping that motivates our investors a bit.
I hope so.
Yeah.
So you mentioned your website. Is there any other way that people can follow you on social media?
No, because because I'm older. I don't social media. It's just too much. It's just too much. So, just go to the website. email me email. I'm cautious about this because I know what happens, but don't come at me with solicitations for everything, please. But other than that, you can email me at info@emeraldoakproductions.com.
Mike, I want to thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
Please, that's fantastic. Anytime you want to come back, we'll talk about future projects. You're more than welcome.
Yeah, no worries. All right. Well, thank you so much.
So let me sign us out.
Yeah.
All right. This has been The Jewish Lens. I'm Jonathan Rosen. The film is Yard Sailing. Again, a very special thanks to Mike Tove. And please like, comment, and subscribe.
Thanks for tuning in to The Jewish Lens, where all items used was strictly kosher.